let's talk about iteration design and the struggles of running a company when all of that comes together. So in our Discord, there was the question of why is this in our build? This is coolant. It's a freezing coolant. It doesn't actually exist in our game in any way. It looks cool though, right? But it does not exist in the game. It never expressed or manifests itself in the game itself. So how does that happen? An endless series of mistakes and why I hate running a company and maybe I'm not good at it. I don't know what else to say. All right, so here, not last summer, but the summer before, we go and we do a big focus and we're going to do a free weekend in June. Now we had solved a bunch of the problems that we were losing players really early on. We had gotten the kind of system that trains players on how to play the game up and running. I thought that it was running and then and so we had solved that. We have solved some of the first feedback about the weapons and some other things. Like we were narrowing down. We were feeling good. We go into the free weekend and there was a bug in the back-end system that only affects brand new players who have never created an account. So we would test as new players, but never new players that never, ever, ever had anything on back-end services. Yeah. So the new players weren't able to find games, or they could only find games, I think, amidst other new players or something. Like it was a disaster. So that did not go well. Looking at that and realizing it did not go well, I said, we got to fix this because here's the date we run out of money. I have one skill in business, and that is you can give me a state of a company and you give me a bank account, and I can tell you pretty much to the day when it's going to run out of money. I don't know how. It's not just simple math because there's a bunch of always noise in that, and I always can figure out the noise. I don't know how, but I can. So I'm like, we gotta scramble. So I'm going to go talk to publishers and I'm going to go talk to investors. Now, investors had originally told us, hey, yeah, we'll totally come in if something happens. So like when we launched and I said, oh my God, how we are to Game Pass to Steam's freaking me out. We got to react to this and change. And they're like, hey, no, it's cool. Don't worry. And if you need more money, come June, we'll come through and give you millions. And then come June, and they're like, whoa, hey, the world changed. We're not doing that anymore. So, okay. So talked to a bunch of publishers, and I am lucky. I am lucky because I can just call almost anybody up on the phone and be like, hey, you got 5 minutes. And the feedback is, hey, most publishers won't touch us because we've already launched. And so their answer is, since we can't control the entire messaging around this and pull it back and do all of our levery things, we don't want to touch this. Thank you for the quick no's. Others are like, hey, send us the game. Yes or no right then. And we still had that problem, right? So lots of no's. But again, thank you for the quick no's. And then some are like, hey, we're going to be at PAX. Can you talk then? I'm like, oh, that's getting close. And some are like, hey, it's summer. We don't do work. Investors don't do work. Hey, if you're VC, come Thanksgiving in the US, you stop working till February. And then from February till about May, you work. And then you don't work from about June to September. And then you work late September. And then, hey, Thanksgiving's right around the corner. So become a VC. It's easy work if you can get it. That's some work very hard, and I appreciate. But that's the boat we're in, right? And so here's the deal. When you're pitching companies, when you're pitching underneath this kind of pressure, it sucks. And it's soul draining. And I get crabby. And I don't want to be around me. And it's exhausting. And it's exhausting in a way that's hard to describe. And so I'm like, well, hey, we still have this team, though. I don't think we should fire everybody now. So here, and I'm really clear with the team, and I'm like, hey, this is where we are. We have the summer now. If the free weekend had been a hit, it would have been like all hands on deck. Let's go. Why am I talking about this with the ice guys? I'm going to get to that. And this is all intertwined, right? And so it's like, okay, it wasn't a hit. We know the problem areas. Let's do a game jam. Let's just, what are people on the team identifying as a problem? What do we want to go look at, right? And so there was this game mode one person was interested in that made it more arcadey and kind of fun, and interesting that way. And then there was another who wanted to do guns. The biggest group wanted to do guns, and then someone wanted to do coolant. Now, and then some people wanted to change some of the underlying AI from behavior trees to GOAP. And that's good work, right? Because you're always trying to encourage, but also like encourage in the right way. And so the very first thing I asked about the coolant was, I don't get the gameplay. Can you explain the gameplay to me? And we really didn't get something solid there. The weapons were going to be like, hey, we're going to pick up pieces, parts, and you're going to build your own weapon. And you could build like, right, the crazy bazooka with a sniper scope on it. Not exactly, but you know what I'm saying? Like, it's that kind of thing, right? So I'm like, oh, okay. The weapon stuff, I know, we already know the weapon problem. We've talked about the weapon problem, admit to the weapon problem. Then the very beginning, if your negative review of us is only 15 minutes, you're going to talk about the weapons because you've never gotten to the upgraded weapons, the new weapons, the weird weapons that you get. And that's fine. I'm not knocking you. I'm just saying I understand. And so there you go. So that team's on the weapons. So I am doing this pitching and trying to get through life because I got to come up with decks. I got to go reach out to a bunch of people. Like it is actual work. So I'm doing that, and they're doing their game jam, and I'm talking to the people who are kind of sitting on top, overseeing stuff. And then we have this publisher who's like, "Hey, come December, you're golden. We're gonna give you a bunch of money. We're gonna do this project with you. It's gonna be the biggest project you've ever done. It's gonna be amazing." Okay, cool. We just have to last till then. And so, but trying to like, that's one project. This is the Anacrusis. How do I make sure this Anacrusis, I don't want to be the developer who left you something unfinished. I want to finish something. So, okay, how do we do these two things? So the team is doing their game jam stuff and they're working. Now I'm talking to the weapons team and I'm worried because I'm worried that putting individual things that you pick up in the world means someone's going to run ahead and you're going to get their scraps. There's a player who does that now that'll play with us sometimes that I just know I'm not going to see a special weapon. They're going to grab them all. It's an imperfect thing. Special weapons, you can't just use up. You can't consume. You can't pick the best. You can pick the one that you like. And so it kind of works. Same with grenades, right? It works that way. But for the weapon stuff, it's more problematic, right? There's another zombie game where you have to rush and then you pick up the weapon and you have to figure out complicatedly if you want this weapon or not really quickly because there's other people who are just grabbing into the same thing to you. So you always just pick it up. It's not ideal, right? And I'm voicing my concern about that. And they're voicing their concern. And well, they're running out of time. Instead of having you pick up the individual items, they're thinking of just putting it in and there'll be a bunch of weapons in there. So you might get the bazooka. You might get the high grade scope. You might get the more ammo, and then different variations of those, right? That kind of thing, right? Fine. Again, more weapons. Weapons are problematic. How can we fix the weapons? Some of that sound. I think we struggled on the sound part a lot. I think we failed at that. And instead we did some other sound things that I was kind of frustrated with. And again, that's my failure. As my failure to lead. This is why when people talk about work from home and work in the office, the work from home is still frustrating for me. And I'm an old man who wants to walk over to your desk and talk to you where I feel I'm interrupting you if I'm doing work from home. And so the failure of management there, 100% of me. Because weapons are sound. And so we're doing those. And the weapons, I can see like, okay, this combining and it's going to be this complicated thing you got to read. And it's still not what I want, but I can understand where we're going with this. And we can launch with that and then do the next step later. It's a step. It's good. Coolant I still don't get. And so if you're iterating, one of the things with something like the coolant is you have to say no at some point. Now, the thing that kills me and the thing that is me dropping the ball is I did not realize we were doing all this visual work around this. I thought we were just doing, hey, is this fun? How can we use this? Because I still haven't found the fun, right? Find the fun first, then the polish. Like our whole game's built on that. Art comes second because you first find the fun. Here, we never found the fun, but we found this cool look. It is a cool look, right? But is it sci-fi? Like, so coolant in freezing could be, right? I mean, the movie Gravity, she's definitely worried about freezing. Like it is something of sci-fi. It is not sci-fi in the way that we do our grenades and things that had a hand more in the design of that were very much aspirational or inspirational of sci-fi. But this is in the ballpark. But it never got there, and it was never going to get there. And so I had to make the hard choice of, even though we spent some work and time on it, we were going to cut it. And instead, everybody was going to concentrate on the weapons. So now the weapons ship, We had to let people go because we didn't get the thing that we needed. The company that we were going to do the giant project with shut down all their active projects and killed all the ones in progress. It was a rough couple of years, man. And so we were left kind of decimated after that. And so how our world works is we say, well, okay, we are still going to finish the Anacrusis. We will figure a way to do that. When we let people go, we try to let them go with like extra time so that we can help them find jobs and they have health insurance and be like, don't worry about doing your job. But actually, everybody finished out the weapon stuff and all their weapon work and really did kind of extra, and was really, I really thank them for that. But the other stuff was kind of just lingering and problematic. And so that's kind of when we got smaller, and then it was just like, well, this weapon stuff we need to update and we need to get feedback from the community. And I don't ever want to stray off of that. I want to ever get to this ice world again. Right. And so if you noticed when the team got really small, we had updates almost every week for a while. And that was expressly because I wanted to make sure everybody got on the habit of we are creating stuff for people to consume that has to find the fun first. We can polish and make it better later, but it needs to find that. And so this last year, when we added verses and all of that, is a good example of how I like to work. I like to ship. Where you're like, well, hang on, though, that ice stuff, there's some good ideas in there, though, kind of, right? Yes, and if we had the money, if we had unlimited funds, that is what Riot can do. That is what Valve, right? That is what Valve can do, is they can keep iterating and they can keep finding that. Right? We did not have unlimited funds. We could not do that. We had to concentrate on the things that gave us the payoff for it. But we wanted to leave the ice and everything in. So if somebody else found something, right? I think Tom Francis just had a video update. You should follow him on this thing. And he's making Tactical Breach Wizards. How could I forget that name? The demo's out now. You can check it out. But he was talking about why the game took 6 years, and it's because they had the money to have it take 6 years. See, I like to ship right away. So like I'm going to do an update probably this week that I'll talk about like next steps of what's coming, because I want to ship and I want to figure out how to ship and how to keep shipping and how to always be shipping. How can we open up the Anacrusis now more to the community so that they can also then be part of that? Because there's a bunch of cool stuff coming. People made new weapons. Khan made new weapons. Let's be clear. They're super cool. Like it's amazing to see that in there. Somebody linked to me it's just super cool seeing all this. And so how can we empower that? How can we keep shipping? How can we keep going? How can we keep iterating? But the reason why the ice characters are in there, but you don't see them in the game, is failure on my part to lead in a way that we were making sure that we were not going dark and creating stuff for players to consume. Now, even internally, we weren't finding fun in it and struggling with it. Hence, it never got further. But the weapon stuff did, because we were finding fun with the weapons. And it was fun building the weapons. I kind of wish we could have had some version of that in there, but it was just really problematic. And not all the weapons had it, because now if you play with people, I think I said it already, but like if the first 15 minutes, if you give me a negative review, I know it's because you don't like the weapons, because you haven't gotten to the good weapons. Like there are good weapons out there. There's a bunch of good weapons, but we want you to lead to them. And I guess we made the original weapons. I've talked about that. But like, there's also like, you can have one person have a stasis gun, which is just freezing players, right? They have the stasis LMB, and then somebody else has like a really powerful tier 2 rifle, and you can wipe the floor of everything if you work together, right? So like just really good combinatorial stuff that happens between teams, and it's awesome and it's fun and it's cool, but you got to get through the first set of weapons first. I still like the first set of weapons. I don't think they're that bad, but I understand if people have issue with them. And that's where we saw. But also, that is why we got to where we got, right? And that is just part of the process of doing this. But I think we're in a good spot now. I think if you take a look at how the weapons combine and how you get to them, it's just the initial ones, and maybe we should mix them in there and let people find them and not worry about the path to power, because in Versus, we don't worry about that as much. But that is how you end up with that. And that is how you end up with that state when you have a company without unlimited funds. And so then how do you work with that? And how do you deal with that and make sure you're understanding about that? And that's something we try to do. Unless you want to give us unlimited funds, and then we'll work a different way and we'll just have big parties.